while all the things that we find ourselves doing to administer to young people are important and critical, I love this particular expression, and that is around the performing arts, um, and that artistic expression, through music, dance, etc. So, and as one who wears the hat of worship leader at my church, I love being able to see that expressed also in young people as well. So much so, my daughter is a member of the worship band at the youth church, and there's sometimes I want to say, "You better be playing." That's one of those comments I shouldn't have made. All right, sorry. See, you're supposed to mute me, Stephanie. All right, Shalene, if you're not able to unmute your camera, we would definitely want to hear your voice. There you are. All right. So we'll do some quick introductions here, and we're just going to get into a good conversation, a good dialogue, even if it's just us. Of course, I'm Gerald Bell, and Stephanie Donovan is our illustrious producer for this on our team as well. She's been on our staff for almost a year now. And welcome. Always blessed to have Stephanie be a part of the conversation, as well as taking some major notes on behalf of the conversation and making sure that all the right communication in terms of follow-up takes place as well. So thank you, Stephanie, for your hard work. Also excited to be able to have my fellow class of 2003 alum, Rod Hines from Los Angeles. Yeah, it's been 20 years plus since we graduated. So and we got scars to prove it. So, and then also I have to say this as well. My premier #1 first DVULI niece is on this call as well. And so I remember when she was just out of bassinets. All right. And so and so Chantel Hampton, who's the Orlando class of 2022, and just grateful to have her on the call as well, doing some great things. I'm sorry, 23, one of those digits. She's a graduate, all right? And Shalene is due to graduate coming up.
No, she graduated.
Oh, that's right, exactly what am I thinking? It's right. Sorry about that. Too many participants. All right, so on that note, I am going to turn this over to Chantel and Rod to just kind of engage in conversation with us. We do ask that if you could stay muted with your audio when you're not talking, keep your video unmuted when at all times. Kind of keep your comments, interaction to about a minute or so, and use the chat box when necessary as well. And as always, we'll send out an email after this call is over of the notes and the recording. Chantel and Rod, I'm gonna let y'all take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for an awesome introduction.
Yes,
Hi,
indeed.
everyone on this call. Welcome, welcome. So, one of the first things we're going to start off with doing is providing you a statistic of what's going on, just so you can get a scope of what's happening in the performing arts, and what this means to our youth in our communities. So, the statistic says low-income neighborhoods with cultural resources have 14% fewer cases of child abuse and neglect, and 18% less serious crime than low income neighborhoods without cultural resources. This is from the source of cultural and social well being in New York City, 2017. So, my question following that statistic is, how do these statistics inform the work that you do with youth and arts in your community? So whoever
Yep.
wants to answer may.
Go,
Yeah.
go ahead, Shalene.
Okay. It's very, very true, that the arts and its impact on the lives of youth is its own saving agent. It's very, very, very true. Just for story's sake, we just came out of a production, and one of our 13-year-olds brother died 2 days before the production. And the mother reached out and she said, my son just passed away, but my daughter said she still wants to be at the production. And to see the young people come around her and love on her, you could tell that it acted as a saving grace for her life. It was a breath of fresh air for her. And so I definitely agree that we do see that these types of programs help to create safe spaces that enable children to stay away from substance abuse and other things of that matter.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. And in fact, so years ago, I'm not going to tell you how many, but in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, used to produce a local, actually a statewide talent competition for middle school and high school students. And it's amazing how many, and this was just an annual event. This wasn't an ongoing provision of an expression, but I got parents to this day. I mean, these kids have grown and doing all kind of different things now who have said their exposure and that experience, auditioning, the rehearsals, the production itself, the post events and stuff, as well as cast parties, etc. That happened at a pivotal moment. Because if not, the drugs were right knocking at the door for my son. And this is in some cases, this is in the early days of rap music, right? You know, and so it was those kind of things that offered an opportunity for them to divert from being influenced by what was like readily accessible and available. And in some cases, with a deeper level of influence because they were promising money. Now, this is back in the day when we had first, second, and third place winners, and it was $100, $50, and $25. But the drug dealer got $1,200, you know, $3,000 for the weekend, you know, and so I said that to say I think you know that positivity in terms of having artistic expression um, is is pivotal for a lot of young people, and that was back then, and I know it's even all the more now, you know, because there are other vices vying for kids' attention, like this thing that wasn't around during that time, you know, and so. Um, yeah, it does inform the work. And to honestly, I mean, as a father of a teenager, keeping her active in the arts, you know, we're not letting up. And she'll tell you these her parents are not letting up. So I think it's important.
I think that art and creativity is at the core of who people are. Like, you know, before they speak, they sing. Before you write, you draw. Before you walk, you dance. Like when kids first start to stand, that's when they do the, you know, it's just like at the core of who we are as people. And so I think like there's something magical about that when you bring kids back to that performing space and just being acknowledged for their work.
And if I can piggyback on that, I mean, not only just acknowledge their work, but also it provides a voice for a lot of them in the midst of their issues. And sometimes even an escape. I've had students down through the years, whether it be high school, middle school, whatever, who have said to me, Mr. Hines, thank you for this space. And then after the thank you, then we have some conversations that I did not expect to have, to know that they were going through so many things, and that sometimes for them in their home, they weren't able to even speak or share their emotions or even have a language for that, but then find that language in the midst of the musical that we're working on, or the pieces that we're working on, or even those moments when we get a chance to write and to hear some of their amazing poetry at 13, 14, 15 years old, that speaks to their trauma and the things that they're going through, and the hope that they still have in spite of their lives that they're living. And so we have to understand the amazing influence of arts in our schools and in our homes and our communities.
Absolutely. If I may piggyback off of that, the voice is so important, and them feeling like they can voice their emotions, their fears, their situations in a way that um, is unique, um, and that is in many ways taking the ugly and making it beautiful, for these youth I've seen has been so beneficial. I remember teaching a class, well, two. One was with Job Corps in Massachusetts, and a lot of these kids were coming out of truancy and coming out of foster homes. They were coming out of different places, and them having the chance to come together, we would sing every week and write something, write some sort of song every week. And they got so excited about doing that, and then they got to perform it in front of their whole Job Corps class. Like that in itself gave them such a boost of encouragement, empowerment, that they can actually do this. They've never done it before. They weren't musical necessarily, but they were able to do something that many people would have said they could never do. And so it's just powerful to see how having that voice can benefit them in such a beautiful way.
So,
Exactly. So our next question, if we can go to that now, although I have a little bit more to say, but I want to make sure we keep it pushing. Is what barriers have you encountered with bringing performing arts into your community, and what steps are you taking to address them?
That's a great question. Well, in general, faith, right? That has been a problem consistently in that we are a faith-based nonprofit organization. Sometimes that has been the greatest barrier, I'll say that. Even though a lot of our programming, it's not Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus this. Just
mhm.
when research is done and they see that we're connected to faith, that becomes a barrier. But God has been doing some amazing things lately, specifically in connecting us to schools, and not Christian schools, but private schools. And one thing that I've learned is that we have to be open to the flow of how God will do it. Because one of the schools that I got into recently, I got into not through the arts, but being an advocate for a child that was being bullied. And I was able to have a lot of the school representation and the district in one room in a moment to address that. And the thing that I asked them was not, can I bring an arts program into your space, but how can I serve this community? How can I help this community? And that has begun to open up further conversation. The other thing would obviously be funding.
Yep, I agree. It's always like, everybody says that there's never enough money to do the things that you need to do, especially because the arts is so criticized that you have to like deliver at a certain level of excellence. And if the resources are not there and obtainable, then you find yourself compromising what you know to be a certain standard. That if the right resources were at your disposal, you could deliver at that standard and command the kind of respect and attention that you would hope, that it would garner. But I think from the standpoint of young people and youth, I think unfortunately they find themselves being navigated through some of those lower resourced organizations and doesn't provide the platforms or even the access to certain platforms because what they're delivering is being considered substandard. They're gifted, they're talented, they got, all kind of swag, if you will, when it comes to their skills and abilities. But in certain contexts, just find themselves, okay, well, if this is the best that has been offered, then shoot. So, I don't want to get into geographics a whole lot, but before moving my family to Grand Rapids, Michigan, we lived in the New York area. And so my daughter's taking dance and music and piano in New York. There was a certain level of delivery and even expectation that was in the New York area, highly competitive, right? Then we come to Grand Rapids where the competition isn't as stringent and or as strict or as high. And it's like, okay, wow, she sometimes hungers for what she was getting in New York because it demanded more in terms of delivery, but the resources were there because New York is New York, right? And so they're putting dollars and billions behind arts for kids in that area geographically. Where while I will say this, as philanthropic as Grand Rapids is, and I celebrate and applaud that specifically in the context that I work in, um, could more be done? Absolutely. Yeah, to resource the arts programs that are here, and there's an array of opportunities here, for kids to express themselves. But I think, just in terms of, geography sometimes does play a role in that as well, and then you got some of the best teachers, best musicians who want to work in the New York market anyway. So they pack up and leave places like Michigan and go there so that they can have the same kind of access also, to further their careers as either teachers or Broadway musicians and artists and what have you. Yep. So there are some barriers. I mean, and some of those tend to be geographic at times as well.
I totally agree with that. I also see that one of the barriers can be, and I think it comes with parents as well as the support around the students, is understanding and knowledge of what the arts can do past just being an outlet. And I think there are some kids that have dreams and feel like they want to be in a professional field in some sort of creative way, but they're told that that's not going to make money, or you can't do that, or this, like, no, focus on this. I need you to focus on getting that math homework done. Like, okay, yes, and it's not a either or. It's like, but how do you do it? And I think it's a lack of knowledge and a lack of education for teachers and the adults, the support system around these kids, because everybody's been in survival mode, that they don't think about how this can be an outlet and a way out of that survival mode, into a mode of thriving. So I think the lack of training for adults, and that's been my thing recently. How can we train the parents? How can we train the people around them, the teachers, and let them know that there is something for you? They can do this. So
I'm familiar with a model that's actually in Jersey City, and they actually have a location here in Grand Rapids and Detroit as well, called New City Kids. And what's cool about this program, the high school students help with after school for elementary and middle school, homework, all the major subjects. And then after snack time, there is bass lessons, piano lessons, dance lessons, and singing lessons. And so it's a hybrid, it's a both and. We're gonna get our academics done first, then we're gonna jump around and play and make all kind of noise and sing until sing until we get tired of ourselves singing, or whatever, or work on the production stuff that's coming up in the spring, right? So it's, I think, getting parents behind that is, I think, it's critical. And if a particular program doesn't offer support for homework or academics, then yeah, all the more you need parents that can be the cheerleaders to say, okay, look, I'm going to keep you in this program, or you're going to keep taking lessons, but I'll work with you to make sure that your homework gets done. I'll arrange for a tutor or somebody else to come by or come in or whatever and help get you, acclimated, so that we're not compromising what's number one important, and that's making the grade as well. Yep.
Yeah, I have to say, as a teacher and working in the in public schools specifically, it was interesting to me that the last school that I was working at Kip Scholar Academy, we were a music school in the middle of South LA, and you would just think there were performing arts programs all over the place, but actually there weren't. In fact, when we did a survey of that area, us as a middle school, we were the only middle school in that area that actually had the performing arts. So finances and focus are always an issue, but I think that as we continue to have these kind of conversations, that can be helpful to kind of drive another narrative that the arts are necessary in these areas and in these places. And then I got to say this, as a person who grew up back when dirt was just formed, when we started talking about the whole idea that you got to get a regular good old job, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, or whatever it is. I had a real problem, to be honest with you, to see a pathway of using my music to be the way of making a living. I'll never forget one of the best conversations and worst conversations with my voice teacher at Loyola Marymount University was, I just couldn't see what everybody else could see. Don't you see how talented you are? Don't you see what has gotten you a scholarship here? And I'm like, okay, that's great, but what happens when I leave here and have to try to make a living for myself? And it wasn't until I was actually making a living for myself as a musician, I said, somehow, some way, we got to start putting alongside with these amazing programs, letting them see pathways of how this even can be possible for me to take this wonderful thing that God has given me. And I said, God gave it to me, and then use it to make it a pathway to be able to take care of myself, be able to know that I'll have retirement, whatever it is. So that's one thing I definitely hope that with all the programs that are coming out. Now they start actually focusing in on, so what's the pathways that are many pathways that can happen for someone who is talented and gifted, who's a producer, who can write music, all of that kind of stuff.
You know what? Go ahead, Shalene. Go ahead.
You hit the nail right on the head. One of the things I appreciate about my parents, and I realized it was not common, is that they never tried to detour me as I took my road of education from the passion that I had for the arts. But it was I'm from the Silicon Valley, and there was a school that I attended called Santa Clara University. Yay! And what I appreciated about my BA program was that there was a class in our last semester that highlighted the job opportunities that we could have with our degree. And I remember thinking then, how can something like this be implemented into our faith-based nonprofit arts programs where we connect this to our youth? And even how can we begin to give internships and things of that matter to show them so that they don't think if I am not a lawyer, I'm not successful. So absolutely.
Absolutely. And if I can circle back to just something even regarding the academics, there's a need for, I feel like there is a big need for the school system or even these nonprofits to assist students in the way they think, because most creatives don't think linear, and they may not make good grades, but it does not mean that they're not smart. They actually have a different type of intelligence that has to be nurtured and supported. And if you show them different ways, and it is more tactical, it is more hands-on, it is more experiential, and then give them that path into a workforce of creative field, it changes their lives. And I've seen it happen both in high school, middle school, high school, and then college. So like, feeling students that have flunked out of college but are highly successful now because they had mentorship and they had coaching. So yeah.
Oh my God, y'all are hitting like all the right buttons today. So, what I will say this: I don't know if I can label this in terms of a barrier, but maybe it is. I think some of the infrastructure, as it relates to, like Rod, you talk about, can I earn a living doing what I do, right? Just maybe there is a workshop for parents. Maybe there is, yeah, some sort of opportunity for them to understand that there are ways in which you could understand a little bit about publishing and a little bit about administrative side of how royalties and residuals work and what have you, that it doesn't mean they don't have to go and be a doctor. And I know some parents that push their kids into med school that are successful doctors and frustrated. And so, but it was for lack of understanding about, okay, this is how you earn money. It's not like you have to be the A-list celebrity. Your stuff could be music that you hear in the grocery store that nobody knows your name or who you are, but your royalties are coming in like crazy, and you're making your house note, your car is paid off, you got 401k, it's like, okay, all those things are possible, and it doesn't have to be presented in such a manner that, okay, well, you're not gonna make no living doing this because, it's an unstable industry. And it's again, that's a barrier. I think also the lack of knowledge is a barrier as well.
Yeah, I love the fact that my teacher tried to kind of get me in that path. In fact, my first my first job was at 12 years old. Literally, he said, I can't be here to play this service, and I need you to play it. Now, mind you, that should have been a notice to me, like, hey, I'm trying to let you know you can make a living. And then I got my first little check. And so, because I was a church musician at one point, when I started teaching and having musical, students that I have now, I started saying, you know what, you can be making money during the weekend. And they would look at me and go, what do you mean by that? That means that you could, if you prepare yourself, if you are skilled and practice and all that good stuff, you could, this is a small, simple pathway. Maybe you're not a church person, but that at least is a beginning of you seeing that you can make dollars. And one of my one of my former students said to me, he said, oh no, I'm doing great. And when he told me how much he was making a week as a church musician, I was kind of mad. At the end of the day, I'm like going, how you gonna go and make 1,500 a week, at two churches, and I'm working at, whatever. But anyway. But that's just at least a small beginning. And then from that, he found he could, get other gigs and do other stuff. So again, I think that it's these moments of at least saying to people and educating our students and our young folks about what's out there and understanding that church is not the end of it. It's just, it can be the beginning of you doing other things that you never thought you could do.
We talked a little bit in our pre-meeting too about the impact that like social media has, and like the ability for people to connect or to use or abuse that in ways. And so I think it's kind of a both and a double-edged sword. So what are your thoughts on, folks using that as a vehicle to move their creativity or their brand?
That's a great question. One of the things that I challenge, so I'm currently in the process, and my organization is currently in the process of training young teachers, people that want to teach and give back, but that are also young creative professionals. So we're training them, and then training the next tier underneath. And when it comes down to social media and branding and all of that, I think it all starts before you put yourself out there. It starts with them understanding and having clarity on what they're actually promoting, what they actually want to do, what they act like, because a lot of people can use it as an attention getter, just attention starved attention getter, and then it comes off narcissistic, and they're always posting, download my song, I'm releasing the music. Nobody cares. So what is your message? Because everybody's releasing music, right? Everybody's releasing music, everybody's promoting something. So what makes people actually care about your message? And that can become discouraging for young artists, musicians, artists in general. Like when you're so self-focused that it kind of locks you into your own world because you're inundated with so much coming out. So one of the key things is finding your niche and having clarity on that niche, and having clarity on who you are as a creative and how it is that you are serving the people that you're giving to. Because anybody promoting a product, you're serving the greater, you're serving the consumer. So I think that knowledge of business, that knowledge of marketing, that knowledge of branding, and that knowledge of themselves is so important, so that you're not adding to the oversaturation of nobody caring. So yeah.
And hopefully, as they get to know themselves better, they start to find their niches and the people that they speak to. I have a number of students who are now artists, and I'll listen to their stuff before I promote it. I will say that out loud, because sometimes it's interesting. And so instead of me, saying, "Oh, go get this wonderful piece by such and such," I got to listen to it first, and I will give them some feedback like, hey, what are you trying to say? Do you need some assistance? Are you done with this? Or is this work in progress? Or are you open to, some assistance in this? But I always say to them, who are you trying to talk to? What are you trying to say? Do you have a clear message, or are you just creating something that has a feeling? Who you talking to? And in this day and age, I really do believe, like you said, we receive a plethora of different people with their amazing talents and music, and now they can create their own stuff at home. For some, it may be a barrier, but others it's not. But at the end of the same token, like, you got to know your voice and you got to know your audience. And if you don't know your audience, at least try to understand that. Like, I got to know who these people are that I'm trying to reach, at least.
I would tend to agree with everything that everyone has said. But to that end, also, I think that I have this weird hunch. I'll just say it like that. That although social media is here to stay, the rise of AI is bringing its own blessings and curses. I have this really weird hunch that there's going to be a rise of human connection importance again. And I kind of tested that for this year. My social media presence has been um, kind of just managed by other people because I wanted to feel, what does it feel like to disconnect for a while? what data can I collect as an individual to help a young person that's in the arts of what it feels like to disconnect from the mainstream? And so I kind of did a test this year where pretty much 90% of the time I was not personally on. And what I have found to be very interesting is that my followers didn't grow tremendously, but the inboxes for encouragement, the inboxes for insight grew. Now, that wasn't reflected on how many people were following me, which was very interesting. But there were new people consistently that were reaching out in a different span. It also enabled me to fine tune my personal voice and where I'm trying to go, like Roderick was talking about. It fine tuned what am I really trying to do? And I found that there were more connections that I was also able to make in my local area by just being present out in the community rather than just being, or I should say it like this, relying on just my social media to move it forward. So I think that social media definitely is a helpful thing. But I think that there has to be this balance that is introduced to young people now of you've got to come from behind the screen and be touchable by other persons so that you can make deeper connections with people that you may have never touched also behind the screen.
Well, that's powerful. That's powerful. I want jump in real quick because April Ralston from Louisville, Kentucky, is a current participant going through our program. Phenomenal singer, phenomenal artist, gifted in so many ways. April, if you're able to unmute, would love to introduce you to everybody, and have you kind of chime in as well. She's a mover and shaker in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm trying my best not to pull on her too hard. But Chantel and Rod know that side of me. It's like, okay, now what does Gerald want now? So April, I'm trying to get delivered. Okay. So,
Hello, everybody. My name is April Ralston. I really don't know what to say. I kind of just jumped in the meeting, so I'm kind of catching up. However, it was nice to meet everybody. As
tell
Gerald
everybody,
said,
all the many things you got going on in Louisville, Kentucky, and how does it intersect with music and the arts and what have you?
so right now we have summer camps and after school programs, and we also use it as a place and a time to cultivate the talents of our youth. I know back when I was younger, I was always in a community center or in a boys and girls club, and we had talent shows. We always did something. Everybody has a talent. So what we try to do now is we try to create spaces to bring the talents out of our youth, whether it be dancing, singing, whatever it is that they do that they love. We like to just kind of focus on that, and along with academics and exposure and all those other things for our academy and our camps, we like to bring those things out of them just so that they can kind of get confident and see who they are. We like to put our dreams on kids a lot, and sometimes they just want to sing in the shower. So if that's where they want to sing, we just say, okay, we're here. We're gonna use our shower voices today. So yeah, that's kind of what we do here in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, I like that. I'm gonna borrow that. Use your shower voice. I'm gonna tell some people at church to use their shower voice too. Keeping it. I'm just joking. But April, we were actually kind of discussing some of the barriers we find ourselves facing in the community when it comes to doing our programming, and what are some of the challenges and obstacles we find ourselves having to overcome. And I don't know if you have anything you want to contribute to that end of it. But yeah, that was kind of where we are, and I'm loving this conversation. I really am, and I'm probably partial towards the subject matter as well. But I'll let Rod and Chantel continue on as moderators. But I wanted to make sure April had a chance to introduce herself. And April, if you're able to get your camera figured out, we would love to be able to see your face as well. All right. But all right, Rod and Chantel. There you go. There she is.
Absolutely.
So
Hi,
what?
April. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you. Our next question is, what kinds of curriculum or tools are you using to effectively minister slash instruct in this area? And that's the area of arts and creativity.
So I know for us, we kind of use the old school methods. We just kind of go in and especially with singing because we do a lot with our youth with choirs. So we just kind of go in and just teach them old school, the way that we used to get taught when we were younger. Teach them the songs, let them listen to it, maybe hand them the words, and that's just kind of we're still a little bit behind in some technology things, but I just feel like that is a better, not a better way, but it's a great way to connect with the students because we know now that they really know the words because they actually had to learn the words.
Yeah. So I'll just speak on behalf of an organization that I mentioned earlier. I actually used to be on the advisory board, New City Kids. Their method is, in terms of the resource that they're using, to the high school students are actually compensated for being the tutors and being the teachers of music and arts and dance for the elementary and high school students. I mean, middle school students. So that becomes an attraction. Now I'm on salary, okay? But what also is the high school students are matched with an academic mentor to help them for onboarding towards college. So they get into talking about FAFSA and financial aid and scholarships, that kind of stuff. So parents love that, right? So those are some of the methodologies being used. What I think also is cool about this particular organization is partnerships with the local music store. So honestly, the local Guitar Center has donated bass and keyboards as well. And so, I mean, that helps keep the cost down also to some extent. And that is like, wow, I mean, so the kids get a chance to see, touch, and feel a real professional bass, a real professional keyboard, because in some cases, they don't even have stuff at home to practice on, So it's like, all the more they want to be in these spaces where they can express themselves artistically, whatever that might be. Yep. So there's that. I'm gonna stop for a second and say, my sister from San Antonio, Delisha Glass Nolan, is on. She is a phenomenal dancer, and I just want to say it's so good to see you, my sis. It's been a while. You can just unmute and say hello. Tell everybody what you either have done or are doing with Youth in the Arts. But she's phenomenal.
Thank you, sir. It's so good to see you. Hello, everyone. Please forgive me for my tardiness. So I'm in San Antonio, Texas, and I've been working with youth in underserved communities for about 20 years now. And we focus on a ministry within the arts. With my knowledge and experience, more of that focus is in miming, liturgical, and expressive dance. There's also some drama, theater type art in there. So we are connecting with local ministries. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. So from time to time, I get to travel back there. And while I'm visiting, I get to work and help with students that I work with before relocating here. So that's what we're doing right now.
Good, sis. Appreciate you. I actually failed to do kind of more formalized or have everybody kind of do a more formal introduction to, cause we just jumped right in. I think we were so stimulated by the topic. Chantel, tell everybody what you do in Orlando. Rod, tell everybody what you do in Los Angeles. And then that way we all kind of know who's doing what. Yep.
Okay, quickly, one of the things that I'm currently doing is I'm in the process of building a school. My organization is called Stand Inc. So the arts never die, and so we work with young people primarily in the Seminole County area on exploring the different outlets of their art form and their creativity and building the whole person, the leader, the young creative, and the young entrepreneur. And so getting them connected with resources, internships, apprenticeships, etc. So that's what I'm doing here in Orlando.
I love
That's
it.
right.
Oh, how you doing there? I'm Pastor Rod Hines, pastor of Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran Church, where I'm actually now a full-time pastor, but I'm still doing music education work with my old school, which I just left, Gift Scholar Academy, doing some partnership with them, as well as doing some work with a couple of local organizations through the National Association of Negro Musicians, to do some partnership to make sure that we're actually able to facilitate and assist them in doing that hard work. Gift Scholar Academy is one of the only schools that is a music school completely. That means every student learns music. And so some are learning voice, some are learning piano, some are learning guitar, some are learning band as well. And so with all of that, they not only just learn how to perform, but also how to read the music and all that great stuff. And so our goal is to create the next generation of musicians that will come out of South Los Angeles. So even though I have stepped away, I told them my stepping away is actually gives me more freedom to be able to bring more resources and do some of the things that are necessary to undergird and create real infrastructure to keep the school going, not just these 10 years, but further on.
Quick shameless plug. Both Rod and Chantel have been worship leaders on our platforms. Rod at our reunions and national conferences, and Chantel at our national conferences as well. So good to have their gift expressed in those ways on behalf of DVULI. Yep. All right, I'm done. Back to y'all.
All right. So before we go forward, I know we have 15 minutes left roughly, but the question we just asked, and I know Delisha didn't have a chance to hear it, but what kinds of curriculum or tools are you using to effectively minister / instruct in your area?
Oh, okay. So right now, I'm kind of writing solo, and I'm okay with that because it allows me the flexibility to do multiple things, and just it allows me the flexibility to kind of, go and come with ease, but also accomplish the mission. And so I've been able to connect with many organizations, even moving solo, those who are like-minded artists, and also those who are looking to maybe start their nonprofit. And so I'm able to give them resources that I have and meet and connect with them. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you. Shalene, did you have a chance to? Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody's. Oh, did you?
Sure, I don't mind. So we have with YEP organization, we have Lighted Up School of the Arts, which is an after-school program for ages 6 to 16, in which we offer dance, drums, vocal music, fine art classes. I've kind of written a nice amount of curriculum along with the teachers that we're working with. And then we have Breaking the Barriers Performing Arts Group, which is specifically a performing arts and recording group where we teach the children how to create their own original content. And every 2 years we record new concepts and then tour it. But I've also just been looking at different pockets of curriculum that are current. Shameless. I love Cheryl Porter. I bought one of her full systems, and all of our students, they love her now, but we actually bought the sheet music and all of the tracks, and part of the vocal students, part of their learning is they have to go through certain systems that I connect them to through Cheryl Porter also. So just finding different components to add together that can be used uniquely for our org.
Although I don't instruct in that area, can you give a description of Cheryl Porter and what that is?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So Cheryl Porter actually became a social media phenom. She's this
Wow.
very bright personality, but she she's from, or she lives in Italy, I think, right now. But she basically created a lot of vocalises or vocal warm-ups in which students are able to identify with, and it's just great. She has it for all voicings.
Awesome. That's good to know. Okay, good deal. Yep. And that YouTube university is something else sometimes.
It really is. Just so you all know too, there is a resource that um been using now for years, but Berklee College of Music has, and it's now free and open to the community and to different nonprofits, but it's called the Pulse Music Method. So it gives the foundations of theory, harmony, or ear training, ensemble playing, vocal, everything. So yeah, it's been around for a while and they've recently done a revamp, but you also, as an organization, have the opportunity to apply to become a part of their network as well, which provides more resources and opportunity. So I'm a former alum of the City Music Network and program, and then taught in it for years as well. So if you have any questions about that, I can provide
Cool.
that.
Also keep in mind, to piggyback on what you shared out, Chantel, as an old music educator, I started finding other things online that were really helpful. Like it's called the Theta Music Trainer, which is really helpful. Again, with people learning rhythm and notes and simple music theory. But it also makes it to where it becomes tangible and for our students to be able to utilize. And because it's a game, it gives them a moment to kind of go back, make mistakes, and all that great stuff. And also another great resource, which used to be called Little Kids Rock, is now it's called Music We, where you find curriculum and songs that they can play not only on keys but also on guitar. They also have some voice stuff too that can be really helpful. And a lot of the material is usually pop, rock, popular things that are out there now that they can utilize, as well as a number of other games. I don't know if any of you have ever had those moments when you just needed to have a moment. Did you really understand or remember this? Kahoot always still works, as well as Look It. If you have a student and you have kids in a room, I'm telling you now, they know Book It before you do. And so they have all those wonderful things that you can utilize to talk about music history and all that kind of stuff. It's called Theta Music Trainer. I will type that into the chat. Theta, Theta Music Trainer, as well as Book It. And I'll write those down as well.
We'll also be distributing all this whole conversation and the notes that Stephanie's taking so feverishly to everybody on the call. So if you don't get something accurate, we'll take good care of you.
All right, I'm looking at the time. And so our last question, as much as I don't want to say that with our last question, is this. What professional development resources, seminars, conferences, et cetera, should be on everyone's radar?
Well, if I may jump in, one of the things that there are a few different conferences or areas that you can go to and see what they have, workshops and master classes. Um, Not to plug, but my organization will start doing workshops and conferences on professional development for teachers and leaders next year, starting in February of next year. And I can provide that information. But arts integration is a great resource for professional development for teachers that and creatives that want to integrate the arts and STEAM and how those work hand in hand. And they have curriculum for students as well as for trainers and teachers. Grammy U has tons of resources as well. VH1 Saves the Music has resources. South by Southwest Education has a whole conference that happens in March, I think, of next year. Yeah, so.
This might be considered a shameless plug also, but there is what is called the DeVos Institute for Arts Management. This is in Washington, D.C. Yeah, this is not in Grand Rapids, Michigan, but it's based on the campus at the University of Maryland. And they do conferences and events. They attract globally. And what I do know is that the oldest child to Mr. DeVos, Dick DeVos, and his wife have made a significant financial contribution or commitment to that program. And so, and I believe it kind of connects to the Kennedy Center as well, and in Washington, D.C. And so I don't know a whole lot about it, but only because I know that the philanthropy department here has ensured that the funding has gotten there. I would say it's definitely worth looking into. It's high level stuff, but and I believe there's a significant number of scholarship dollars that have been allocated to that grant as well. So I would say take a look at it and see if there's something to gain as a trainer, as a teacher, or an instructor of the arts, to just keep your axe sharpened as much as possible, and or if there are other ancillary things, maybe it's an offshoot of a workshop or a one-day seminar, that could be explored as well. I would definitely say look into that. Yep.
And depending on your way of rolling, I know that there's a number of conferences that I've taken the time to go to before. I would love to say that they're music education focused, but some of them are not. From the Hampton Conference for church musicians in June, of course, at Hampton University is always helpful. For those of you who are like me, who loves to find out what the new toys are and things like that, the NAMM conference, which happens in January, is wonderful. And the best part about it is that they have not only those wonderful spaces to see all these great things, but they also have some workshops and things like that. You also get a chance to have some master classes with amazing musicians like Shalene and all that good stuff. And so at the end of the day, take some time to check those out. And if you are a good old fashioned Kojic person like I am, the AIM convention is always great. Auxiliaries in Ministry Conference. You get your buck on, as well as take some of your kids with you. And they have an amazing youth component, working with like artists such as Kiara Sheard and others. My only thing is, as a vocal person, I would want you to make sure your kids are prepared for what they're about to do. Teach them how to support their tone and things like that. That's my only pushback. I love gospel music. I love praise and worship, but I need our children to have their voices through their youth all the way to they are older and are able to support their tone correctly. And so that's my only pushback on that type of thing.
Then on that note, I'll give a plug also for the AME denomination, my old church in New York, Greater Allen AME Cathedral, where the former Reverend Dr. Flake and his wife are the emeritus pastors. Anyway, now they do a liturgical dance conference every year that's international and is pretty renowned. But there is a music component to it also, where they bring in top level worship leaders on the gospel music side of things. And we scholarshiped one of our alumni that wanted to go to this past year's conference. I think it's every other year because it's so huge. But they do, it's a liturgical dance and worship conference. And it's for everybody, for those that instruct, those that lead in their churches, young people as well, male, female, every age. They have all kind of workshops. It's a week-long conference, I think, and 4 nights of worship. And it's just like if you were to see some of the video footage or even to be in the room, with the flags and all that kind of stuff, there's just nothing like it. It is like, it's a whole nother world that is created. And It's a 3,000 seat venue, and it's amazing because you just got dancers and singers, and everybody's in their garb and their gear. Nothing like it. It's breathtaking and anointed too. So yeah, thought I'd drop that one in there. And I'm going to try to find a link so I can drop it in the chat as well.
Also, if you think of things after we get off this call, please email me and I'll add them to the group as well. I know it's like you get off and you're like, oh, I should have thought of that. Please add those. I'll be sending this out probably next week. So anything we can help each other with.
The other thing I would mention, because we talked about one of the barriers being the whole financial side of things for students and or even parents, and just their awareness of what are ways to pursue this as a career. Back in my old school music industry days, ASCAP used to hold a conference, and that talks about how you can earn money doing mostly music stuff, obviously, but I think it's still worth tapping into for those that, if you're working with students that have that kind of aspiration, and for parents to know that as well. And there was a student division of that conference also at ASCAP, and I would imagine BMI is probably another one. And I don't know that they do conferences because I was ASCAP, but I would say, yeah, I would look into those as well, so that parents can be informed. Okay, this could be a legitimate career for my child. You know, you don't have to be a policeman after all. You know, although we do need cops. All right, I don't want to slack up. Oh, it's amazing how stuff can just go political real fast. Sorry about that. All right, that's all I got.
Well, yeah, I think that's all we have on our end as well. Thank you all so much. This wonderful conversation.
All right. Kudos, round of applause, emojis, all that good stuff for my two moderators, Rod Hines from LA, class of 2003, and Chantel Hampton, class of 2022, Orlando. Thank you all so much, just for being who you are and doing what you do. April, Delisha, Shalene, glad to have you all on as well. God bless you all. Thank you again for what you're doing in the community. I always like to close out in prayer, because I mean, we always need prayer no matter what we're doing to serve in the kingdom of God. All right. Let's go to the throne. Father, we just want to say thank you for this opportunity to have this brief dialogue.